She's everywhere defending the party. MS Now, CNN, award shows, rallies across America. But when's the last time you heard her fight specifically for Black Americans? Exactly. Let me tell you about the political con game happening right now in Black America. And I'm going to use Representative Jasmine Crockett as the prime example, because she perfectly embodies everything wrong with Black political leadership in 2024. This woman is on every television show you can think of. MS Now has her on speed dial. CNN rolls out the red carpet. She's speaking at events in multiple states, showing up at award shows, becoming one of the most visible Black faces in Democratic politics. And every single time she opens her mouth, you know what she's pushing? The Democratic Party agenda, blue talking points, party priorities. What you almost never hear from her, a specific, unapologetic, uncompromising Black American agenda. Jasmine Crockett has become the biggest voice for blue instead of Black, and she's not alone. She's just the most visible example of an entire class of Black politicians who have mastered the art of using their Blackness to gain credibility in our community, while using that credibility to serve party interests instead of our interests. It's a masterclass in political theater, and we're the ones paying the price for the performance. Let's break down exactly what I mean, because this is important to understand. When Jasmine Crockett appears on television, what does she talk about? She talks about defending democracy. She talks about the threat of MAGA Republicans. She talks about Trump. She talks about abortion rights. She talks about climate change. She talks about protecting LGBTQ rights. All of these might be important issues, but notice what's missing. Where's the segment specifically about Black maternal mortality? Where's the passionate speech about reparations? Where's the angry confrontation about mass incarceration? Where's the demand for anti-Black hate crime legislation? Where's the push for targeted economic development in Black communities? Where's anything that centers Black American-specific needs as the priority? It doesn't exist, or if it exists, it's mentioned in passing as part of a broader coalition message wrapped in language about how all marginalized communities need help. It's never the centerpiece. It's never the non-negotiable demand. It's never the issue she's willing to break with the party over or the hill she's willing to die on. And this is the problem. Jasmine Crockett has a platform that most Black politicians would kill for. She has media access that gives her the ability to shape national conversation. She has a following that allows her to mobilize people and resources. She has visibility that translates to political capital. And she uses all of that platform, all of that access, all of that visibility, all of that capital to be a loyal soldier for the Democratic Party instead of a warrior for Black liberation. Think about the opportunity cost here. Every time she goes on television and spends her airtime defending Joe Biden or attacking Republicans without mentioning Black-specific policy, that's a missed opportunity to educate millions of viewers about issues affecting our community. Every time she speaks at an event in another state and rallies people around generic Democratic talking points instead of Black American demands, that's a missed opportunity to build a national movement for our specific interests. Every time she shows up at an award show and thanks the party instead of challenging the party, that's a missed opportunity to use her platform for our advancement. But it's not just opportunity cost, it's active harm. Because when Jasmine Crockett uses her Blackness to give credibility to a party that consistently takes Black voters for granted, when she tells Black folks to vote blue, no matter who, without demanding anything specific in return, when she prioritizes party loyalty over community accountability, she's functioning as a tool of our oppression. She's the friendly face that keeps us locked into a political arrangement that doesn't serve us. Let me give you the psychological operation at work here. The Democratic Party knows it has a Black voter problem. Not in terms of loyalty. Black folks vote Democrat at rates above 85 to 90%. Consistently, but in terms of enthusiasm and turnout. When Black voters feel uninspired or unseen, they stay home. And when they stay home, Democrats lose elections. So the party needs Black faces who can energize Black voters, who can make the party seem relevant to Black interests, who can generate enthusiasm even when the policy outcomes don't match the rhetoric. Enter Jasmine Crockett and politicians like her, young, charismatic, unapologetically black in style and presentation, skilled at social media, great on television, quick with a clapback, willing to go viral. Perfect. Put her everywhere. Make her the face of the party's connection to black voters. Let her cultural blackness, her aesthetic, her language, her style, do the work of convincing black folks that the party sees them and represents them, even if the actual policy agenda doesn't prioritize them. And it works. Because representation matters, right? Because seeing someone who looks like us, talks like us, comes from our communities in positions of power feels good. It feels like progress. It feels like we have a voice. But what good is a voice that doesn't speak for you? What good is representation that doesn't represent your interests? What good is a congresswoman who refuses to even acknowledge our specific plight until it's time for the 2026 midterms or the 2028 election? That's the real question we need to be asking. What good is Jasmine Crockett to Black Americans specifically, not to the Democratic Party, not to the broader progressive coalition, not to the resistance against Trump or whatever the current political emergency is? What has she specifically done for Black Americans that we couldn't have gotten from any other Democrat willing to check the right boxes and say the right things? I'm waiting, and I suspect I'll be waiting a long time because the answer is essentially nothing. She votes the party line. She echoes party messaging. She shows up where the party needs her. She's a loyal member of the team. But team loyalty isn't the same as community advocacy. Towing the party line isn't the same as pushing a Black agenda. Being a good Democrat isn't the same as being a good representative for Black Americans. And before someone says, well, she has to work within the system, she can't just go rogue, let me stop you right there. I'm not asking her to go rogue. I'm asking her to use the power she has to center Black American interests the way she centers Democratic Party interests. I'm asking her to be as passionate about reparations as she is about defending Biden. I'm asking her to be as vocal about Black maternal mortality as she is about abortion rights generally. I'm asking her to be as strategic about building Black political power as she is about building her own profile within the party. But she won't do that because it's not politically advantageous for her. Fighting for Black-specific policies might alienate other parts of the Democratic coalition. It might make her seem too narrow, too focused on identity politics, too radical. It might cost her invitations to the TV shows, the speaking engagements, the award shows. It might slow her rise within the party structure. So she does what's politically smart for her career. She represents the party faithfully while giving just enough Black cultural flavor to maintain credibility in our communities. This is the stumbling block I'm talking about. This is why Black politicians are obstacles to our liberation rather than instruments of it. They've figured out how to profit personally from representing us symbolically while not delivering for us materially. And they've figured out that as long as they maintain the cultural aesthetics of Blackness, as long as they show up at the right churches and events, as long as they speak with the right cadence and references, many of us will continue to support them even when they don't produce results. But it's not just Jasmine Crockett. She's just the most visible current example. It's all of them at this point. The Congressional Black Caucus as a whole has become a Democratic Party auxiliary rather than a Black advocacy organization. They won't advocate for us specifically. They won't risk political capital on our issues. They won't break with party leadership even when party leadership abandons us. They won't leverage their collective power to demand specific deliverables for Black communities. Look at what happens election cycle after election cycle. Black politicians show up in our communities. They speak in our churches. They attend our events. They talk about the ancestors and the struggle and how far we've come. They invoke civil rights heroes. They quote Martin Luther King. They wrap themselves in our history and our culture, and they ask for our votes. They always ask for our votes. They tell us this is the most important election of our lifetime. They tell us democracy is on the ballot. They tell us we can't afford to sit this one out. They tell us Republicans are worse. They tell us everything except what specifically they're going to do for Black Americans if we give them power. And then we vote. We show up in high percentages. We give them the margins they need to win. We deliver our end of what should be a political transaction. And what do we get in return? Vague promises about helping all Americans. Incremental policy changes that benefit everyone except us disproportionately. Symbolic gestures like Juneteenth becoming a federal holiday while mass incarceration continues, photo ops in kente cloth while Black maternal mortality rates stay triple what they are for white women, speeches about how Black lives matter while police budgets increase and killer cops avoid accountability. We get nothing, or close to nothing. We certainly don't get anything proportional to our loyalty, our turnout, our consistent delivery of votes. We're the most loyal demographic in the Democratic coalition, and we get the least specific attention to our needs. That's not an accident. That's strategy. Why give resources to people who vote for you anyway? Why prioritize a community that has nowhere else to go politically? From a purely cynical political calculation, it makes sense to take Black voters for granted and focus resources on swing voters who might actually leave. This is why I'm asking the question that should be on every Black person's mind right now. If a politician refuses to speak specifically for Black Americans, if they won't advocate for our interests distinctly and unapologetically, if they won't push a Black agenda with the same passion they push the party agenda, how can we confidently cast our ballot for them? How can we participate in this charade where we give them power and they give us nothing? I'm talking about withholding the vote. I'm talking about demanding specific policy commitments before we deliver political support. I'm talking about being willing to let Democrats lose if they won't serve us. I'm talking about recognizing that our unconditional loyalty is our biggest political weakness, not our strength. Because here's the reality. Democrats won't give us a morsel of food when we're starving because they know we'll vote for them while we're starving. They know we'll show up for them while they ignore us. They know we'll defend them while they fail us. They know we're more afraid of Republicans than we are committed to our own liberation, and that knowledge allows them to exploit us indefinitely. Jasmine Crockett is the face of that exploitation right now. She's everywhere, highly visible, culturally Black, politically loyal to a party that doesn't prioritize us. She's the perfect vehicle for keeping Black voters engaged with a political system that doesn't serve them. She's representation without advocacy. She's visibility without power. She's cultural Blackness in service of political agendas that aren't Black. So what do we do? How do we break this cycle? Several things need to happen simultaneously. First, we need to be explicit about our expectations. When Black politicians ask for our votes, we need to ask them specific questions. What specifically will you do for Black Americans? Not for all Americans, not for marginalized communities, not for people of color, for Black Americans specifically. What policies will you fight for? What budgets will you allocate? What legislation will you introduce? What battles will you be willing to lose your seat over? If they can't answer specifically, they don't get the vote. Second, we need to primary these failures. Jasmine Crockett should face a challenger who runs explicitly on a Black agenda, who commits to prioritizing Black American interests over party loyalty, who promises to be as visible fighting for us as she is fighting for the party. Same with every other Black politician who's become a party operative instead of a community advocate. Third, we need to build alternative power structures that don't depend on the Democratic Party. Economic cooperatives, independent media, community organizations, political education programs that teach our people to think strategically about power rather than emotionally about loyalty. Fourth, we need to be willing to withhold our votes. This is the hardest one because we've been convinced that not voting or voting third party is equivalent to helping Republicans. But if Democrats know they have our votes no matter what they do or don't do, they have no incentive to serve us. Our votes need to be earned with specific policy commitments and demonstrated results, not assumed based on fear of the alternative. Fifth, we need to stop accepting symbolic representation as success. Having Black faces in high places means nothing if those faces aren't using their positions to advance Black interests. Representation without advocacy is just decoration. We don't need decorative politicians. We need functional advocates who deliver material results. Jasmine Crockett could be that advocate. She has the platform, the skills, the visibility, the cultural credibility. She could use all of that to be an uncompromising voice for Black American interests, to demand specific policy outcomes, to build a national movement for our liberation. But she won't because it's not politically smart for her career within the Democratic Party structure. She's chosen blue over Black. She's chosen party over people. She's chosen her advancement over our liberation. And until we make that choice politically costly, until we make advocating for us more valuable than towing the party line, until we demand specificity instead of accepting symbolism, we'll keep getting politicians like Jasmine Crockett who are everywhere defending a party that gives us nothing. We'll keep starving while our representatives feast. We'll keep suffering while our politicians thrive. We'll keep being exploited while convincing ourselves that at least we have representation. It's time to demand more. It's time to expect more. It's time to settle for nothing less than politicians who fight for us as hard as they fight for their party. And if they won't do that, they need to lose. Period.